So there's signs that I will see, but then this whole speaking thing, right? And I believe I have only heard God 3 times, because when God speaks, He wants it to be very profound. Uh, you know, I'll go into this a little bit. I'm gonna get kind of vulnerable.
Do it.
So uh, about 5 or 6 years ago, my wife and I were having some marital issues. We were separated for a bit, for about a year. This is one of my testimonies, and I'll go into it just a little bit. But there had been a point that I like into this separation that I hadn't been able to sleep for 3 weeks, like consistently through the night. I would get like 1 or 2 hours, maybe 3 hours of sleep a night. And I was getting like tired and frustrated about it. And I had recently started going back to church a month before that. So one night when I had enough, I was like, dude, I can't sleep. I'm tired of this. Like, I sat up and I yelled at the top of my lungs to the ceiling, talking to God. What do you want from me? I heard at 3 a.m., go home, son. And I was like, home? I am home. Getting
It's
goosebumps.
like literal goosebumps
Dude,
down my entire body.
right. He said, go home, son. And I said, I am home. And I kind of like thought about it for a little bit. And I was like, home is my wife. And I picked up the phone and I called my wife and I said, I heard something from God. And she goes, God? I said, yeah, God.
Pretty convincing.
Yeah. And he told me to come home. And she goes, you are home. I said, no, you're my home. So from that point,
Here.
we have been back together for 6 years. And interestingly enough, and through that entire separation, I found God and so did she.
Cool.
Right? And now we have a foundation of us two and God. And we didn't have that before when we were married.
Building that foundation. Like, that is the strongest foundation to build upon.
Absolutely. So now the alignment's great. There's still the challenges with marriage. I have this mentality now that like, look, anything that happens, I'm here. My feet are rooted in the ground and we ain't going nowhere. We're going to fix this.
Beforehand, it didn't sound like the challenges were rooted into very much anything. Now, solid.
Yeah, that was the one time, one of the times that I've heard him very profoundly. Just a few days ago, I heard him tell me to shut up and listen. That's when I got a text message about my recent job that I just got.
Yes.
Shut up and listen, because all I was doing was complaining for 30 minutes. As soon as I stopped talking, I got a text message from the guy that interviewed me 3 weeks ago and said that he wants to hire me instead of the other guy, when I initially got a no earlier on during that day.
Yeah. That was a very, very cool thing to hear from you.
Yeah.
If you want to go into, honestly, just a little bit on that interview process, that would be
Yeah,
really,
man,
that would be
like
great.
that. So I interviewed with this guy about a month ago, the regional director of this company, and being bold in my faith, he asked me, he's like, hey, man, tell me about the last couple years of your life. And I said, well, I've really been diving into my faith recently. He puts his book down, puts it on the table, and he goes, tell me more. I was like, oh, right. It's really funny too, man, because before I said that, I felt some conviction in my heart to speak up about it, right? So he goes and tells me like, hey, man, this company that we have is a Christian-based organization that focuses on rebuilding men, right? And I was like, oh man, tell me more, right? So we had a really great like conversation. He didn't really ask me like the general interview questions. He looked at my resume. He said it looked great, but he's like, look, man, I want to put you in front of my CEO like ASAP. So I was like, okay, great. He says, I said, you don't have any more questions for me? He's like, I don't need to hear anymore. Right? He says, I feel like you're the right guy. Right? So I had an interview with the CEO And then great interview with that. Conversation went really well. He told me he was looking forward to having more conversations about like my development and growth and moving into the company. He said he was going to meet up with the other guys and discuss the candidates that they had. And I felt like I was
You were in.
I was in. Like, how could
Oh,
I
yeah.
not be? Everything was aligning, right? So then I get an email 2 days ago, or yesterday, I'm sorry, saying that I wasn't a fit. They said my experience was great, my expertise, or whatever the case may be. It was some general email response. However, they were going with another candidate and offer had already been sent out, right? So I came here to teach, and it happened to be a night where I was teaching at 5 and 6 o'clock. No kid showed up that day for some reason, right? Yesterday.
Really?
Yeah, so I was just sitting here for an hour,
Huh.
waiting for the adult class to start, and I I was so angry.
That's just a really good combination of
Yeah,
those two things.
yeah, so angry. So I just started applying everywhere. Like I just started sending my resume out, blah 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 blah. David walks in 30 minutes before class starts, and I was like, "Dude, you're not gonna believe this," and like, cause he knew what was going on.
Yeah.
So I was all I was doing was complaining, griping. I it was stupid because I was pissed.
I would say rightfully so.
Right, but once I stopped and vented and got everything out, and David's looking at me like, "Dude, I got nothing to say to you," right? He said, "Hey, it is what it is." Like, I got a text message. As soon as I shut up, I got a text message from the guy that interviewed me originally and said that he is not happy with the candidate that they selected. He wants to hire me instead. And I was like, dude, praise God.
It got
Right? Praise God, because you know, I what a whirlwind of a day, right? From going from thinking that I got this job because I'm in the bag, like everything's aligning, then getting an email saying I didn't.
the lowest low.
The lowest of the low, and then boom, God delivers, right?
All the way back up to the
And
top.
that is an example of how he works. You can't hit rock bottom, right? Well, you're going to hit rock bottom, but you got to know who your rock is.
Ooh, that's a great line.
Right? God is your rock, right? So when we get to those points of rock bottom, only then will God lift us back up and reinforce that relationship with him, right? Like now I'm all hyped up about God, like again, right?
That's beautiful.
Right.
That's just awesome.
Yeah.
Everything about that. So that was number 2. You said there was 3 though. The trifecta.
Wife, that job. Oh, older sister had consistently been for decades pushing me to seek God, right? And I was like, no, man, I'm good. Like, I think the world is the world, and we're just humans, and we died and go into dirt.
So you were an atheist before?
Yeah, essentially.
Full, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And not to say that's like a bad thing, but
No.
it was just my thoughts and my beliefs, right?
Yeah.
My biggest thing, like going, like, I would easily have converted from atheist to believer like that if I was like, hey man, come down and show me that you exist. Give me 2 seconds. Just pop. And just look, hey, I'm here.
You and me had the very much same
Right.
idea. It's like
Hey,
all being God,
Yeah.
the creator of the universe.
Yeah.
Pop. What's
Just show
to
up.
stop? What's to
2
stop?
seconds.
Imagine like
Yeah. I'm like, okay, then I would be like, okay, I'm good. All right, I believe, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so, but my sister was like, she would say, like, look,
it takes the faith out of it.
it does, but it also, like, it's not, don't look for him physically. Look for the things that are happening around you that are unexplainable. Miracles. People getting healed from sickness when there was no cure for it. People, falling to rock bottom and literally coming back in through the ashes. Like, look for the miracles around you. That is your physical proof that God exists. And I was like, okay, I might be able to get around that. Like, buy into that idea. But the day that I decided, after my sister had been like kind of pushing me to go and take a walk with God, and I was like, look, I finally told her, I was like, look, you just need to leave me alone and let me make the decision myself.
That's always what it comes down
Yeah, I said, Monica, if this is a decision that I'm going to make, I don't need to be forced into it. Uh, I want to make it an organic decision
to.
and a natural decision on my own to walk with God.
Yeah.
Right? So she said, okay, fair enough. Right? So I, during the time frame that I was like, that I was separated with my wife, I started going back to church because I didn't really feel like I had anything else to lean on. And I did feel like I was going down a path of darkness again, and I didn't want it to experience that again, because I knew what kind of individual that I was, and it was not a good person. So I had a friend of mine kind of force me to go to church with them because they wouldn't shut up about it.
Yeah.
They kept begging me, and I was like, no, I'm not. But eventually I gave in, and I was like, all right. So I walked up to the door of the church. My palms are sweating, like, and it was because Kyle, like, I was afraid of the judgment from others, right? I didn't want to be judged by others, because who wants to hear that?
No, of course not.
So, God uses people as vessels, right, to speak to you. And I'm standing in front of this door, and it had been about 2 or 3 minutes of me just like pacing back and forth, making the decision whether to go in or not. And my friend goes to the door and he goes, Dan, it's just a
Mm.
door opens. Think about how much you get to experience, right? Uh, I was like, all right, fine. You put it in that perspective.
Yeah.
I'll go in there. So I go in, sit down, and I start to listen to the sermon that day. And it was a sermon about God accepts everybody. And I needed to hear that.
It feels like any like 99 times out of 100, the sermon feels like it's speaking directly to you.
It does. And it does. It really does. But like that case, right? Even more so.
Yeah.
Because the the pastor had no idea who I was. This is a big mega church, man. There's like 400 people in this church. But that was the message that was being conveyed that day, that time, at that moment. And I was there. Right? So he spoke to me, I think, multiple times at that point. The door opening and the sermon. So God's good, man. He delivers
Awesome.
when you need to hear it.
That's really incredible, Dan. I mean, that's that entire segment. That was awesome.